Channel 114. Visit Channel 114.
This evening on the VC3 News Update, the Roads, Building and General Services Authority BRACSA has joined the fight against dengue fever in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a $2.5 million road cleaning program. Vincentians to be educated on COVID-19 protocols that are to be implemented for the general elections slated for November 5th. And the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment now has a cardiologist in service. And in sports, locally, Wakanda came away 8-3 winners over K&N yesterday at the Richland Park playing field in the Hyroon Digital Richland Park 9-a-side competition. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago's Football Association President William Wallace successfully defied FIFA in the High Court. We'll have these stories and more at 7 p.m. on the VC3 News Update.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Roundtable Talk. Well, it's election season, it's election time here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The date has been announced close to 1 week now, November 5th, that's Thursday, November 5th. General elections will be held here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To talk this evening, we have the Supervisor of Elections, Mrs. Dora James, and her deputy, Pastor Sylvester King. I'm calling you Pastor today.
That's okay.
Hope that's okay.
That's okay.
Guys, I know you have been really, really busy since that announcement was made last week. How are things shaping up? What is happening right now?
Well, let me just say thank you for having us. It is a pleasure to speak to St. Vincent the Grenadines. Now, when we got that information, we began rushing because we had deadlines to meet. For example, we had to ensure that this gazette was printed and all of the information that was supposed to be in it got in and on time. So by Friday, it had to be in the gazette, the newspapers got the information, the radio station, TV, all the media houses. We had to ensure that that was done. After that, the preliminary list had to be prepared. So the staff had to get working. We begin long hours in, even up to now, long hours of work because our deadline was Monday. We had 3 days to put that list together and to get it out in the public. So we had our personnel moving throughout the country, getting those lists up and ensuring that persons can check the list to get their information, ensure that their names are on the list. Right now, we are working during the 15-day period, and I'd leave the Deputy Supervisor to speak about the 15-day registration. But we are working on that, the officers in the field, and they're getting the work done. And we encourage people to go but most of all, to give correct information. We have challenges, and we appeal to persons to be honest, to be forthright when giving their information, and we ask that they do so on time.
Certainly, it's a pleasure to be back with you, Teresa, and it seems just like yesterday we were here.
That's right.
And I remember when we came the last time, we were saying when the date is announced, and that time has come, so we are there now. And on the dissolution of Parliament, the Governor General will announce a very special 15-day registration period, and that was done on Friday, the 9th, and the special registration started on Saturday the 10th of October, and it runs until the 24th of October, so that period of 15 days. And because Saturday is considered a working day, we had to start in earnest on that day, and we did registration in all 15 constituencies on Saturday the 10th. Now, the only day that we will not be doing registration is a Sunday, because Sunday is considered a public holiday. Because if you look into the act, you would see that Sundays are considered as holiday, and you know that. And so we are doing the registration over this period. In fact, there are 10 more days remaining as we speak. So those persons who need to update their registration, and if they turn 18 during this period, that's when they get registered. Now, somebody called and asked, if my daughter turns 18 on the 30th of October, can she be registered? And the answer is no, because the registration period is closed.
Just ended, okay.
That person has to turn 18 on the 23rd of October or on the 24th of October. If that person becomes 18 on the 24th of October, that person can register. Now, registration is from 3:30 to 5:30, and it is important that people maximize this special period. During the period, people can update their registration, they can change their address, they can transfer. All of those things are facilitated. Of course, they have to meet the conditions and the criteria that is stipulated by law. And when they go to the centers, they are to ensure that they take the relevant documents. And we are reminding persons that you need a photocopy of your birth certificate and every other document that is required.
So an original as well
along with the photocopy. Now, we have established this a long time ago, that the photocopy is what we are keeping on our records. And we're seeing the usefulness of it day by day. Because, Teresa, you know your name is spelled in different ways. And that birth certificate is what certifies or validates that your name is spelled in that particular way. So having that document is important. If you obtain your citizenship, make certain that you bring the original and a photocopy. You are married, bring along your marriage certificate with a photocopy. And so there is no excuse for persons to say, well, I can't. This is the practice. This is what is obtained. And just like when you are applying for a visa or a passport, you're required to bring these documents, and don't make any bones about it. You carry it. For this, an important document like the national voter's card, which is really an ID card, voter's card, serving two purposes.
Okay. So there's a question here already. Somebody is asking, I read that of a population of 107,000 in SVG, that 97,000 are registered to vote. Is this true?
Yes, it is true. Now, what the caller and the populace need to understand, we have continuous registration. So weekly we have registration on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the persons who turn 18, they come to register. Now, there are a number of persons in the diaspora, and they're still registered. And you have persons who would say, well, why are they on the list? Now, we talk about, and we continue to do so, about the process by which persons' names can be removed. Death, So when we have deaths, those names are removed based on the information we receive from the registry. They are the authority on deaths. Now we have other persons, and that would be few and far between, where persons might make objections for one reason or the other. They might give false information and we suspend their registration. But for those persons who have migrated, the law says that if you're out of the country for 5 years, then your names can be removed. But there is a process in removing the names. We have the enumeration period that can be used. We have not yet had an enumeration period. And then we have that period that was passed, that bill that was passed in Parliament, that act, and that gave us the right to remove names every 10 years in keeping with the life of the card, 10 years. So you would find that in 2015, when those names were removed, to this time we are in 2020, just 5 years away, and we have to wait until 2025 to remove those names. We have to have that data correct. Those persons are overseas, they never returned to St. Vincent, and then that is confirmation. With other agencies, we'll be able to get that information and make those removals. Until such time, we cannot expunge the list until we have that information and the time that gives us the right, the time and document.
To join the conversation, there is nothing unusual with what is...
Before you do that, maybe you might be answering, preempting. Someone living in Spring Village for a year but is registered to vote in Central Leeward has decided to have a transfer done. So that's a transfer. The registration is taking place in Chateaubriand. Can that person do the transfer there?
Okay, so let's establish clearly that a person who is seeking to be transferred, once they meet the requirement, what is that requirement? They must be living in that new place that they wish to be registered for 6 consecutive months. Now, the law is very specific. In fact, on the subsection 5, the qualification of a voter, it says that the person has the right to remain where they had their first registration. So it's not like if it is illegal to stay where you registered first. But for many good reasons, a person may choose to transfer. Because it means that whenever an election is called, like election is called on the 5th, if your registration is in Spring Village, but you're now living in Layu, it means that you will have to go back to Spring Village to cast your ballot. But if you do a transfer, it will be more convenient for you, because doing your transfer means that you're going to be placed in a polling division in that new constituency closer to where you now reside. So that's I'm giving you the good positive reason for the transfer. I don't know about the other things, but I'm telling you that is the expedient reason that I am now living in Layu, and rather than having to jump on a bus, and you know how difficult it is to get a bus to go from Layu to Spring Village on election day, unless I have a private transportation. It's easier to go to Layu where I live, maybe walking distance, and get it done.
And in relation to the person who asks, the Spring Village and Chateaubriand are in the same constituency, so they can travel up to Chateaubriand and do their registration.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Exactly.
And before we take the break, probably would have to answer that when we come back, even though I thought the supervisor would have answered that already. Somebody wanted to know how about a Vinci living in the U.S. for over 20 years. Can they be registered to vote in SVG? I think you did talk about that earlier, but when we come back, we'll give you an opportunity to answer again. Back in just a moment.
Thank you.
On Friday, October 16th, there'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of $62,000. A new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot, $62,000. Fire and dice. Together on one scratch ticket can make your dreams come true. Yes, it's Fire and Dice. The new $10 scratch game with thousands of dollars to be won. Match your numbers with any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown up to $125,000. You can double or triple your prize with Fire and Dice. Available from all lotto agents and runners. There's cash to catch with just a scratch.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way, Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
The Super 6 jackpot for Friday, October 16th is $240,000. Super 6, more jackpot money.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way, Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Break. Someone wanted to know about if you are living in the US for over 20 years, if you can still be registered to vote in SVG.
So let's break that down so that the caller can understand. Now we have Vincentians living abroad for over 20 years and their names are still on the list because they believe in being a Vinci to the bone. So each time they revisit, they come home, they update their registration. They observe that the card is out, they come and renew. So their names would remain. There are others, in some cases, some come home, they don't bother to update, and others who stayed like 20 years or so before returning. Now, they might have been caught in that 2015 expunging of the list.
Correct.
And once they are taken off, they will have to remain in St. Vincent for 6 months when they come for holidays in one constituency, and then they can go back. So there are others who are already on the list, and because of their constant update, refreshing, renewing their card, they remain on the list. So you can be out there 20, 25 years and still be on the list.
Okay, so somebody else, I think you answered that, wanted to know if someone visits regularly, if they would be allowed to vote. But I think you covered that. Mm-hmm. And there's a comment, they need to put a mechanism in place for Vincentians who live abroad to still vote. I am still a Vinci, I pay taxes there still.
Well, once they come home, they can vote. You see, the thing is, once a person's name is on the list, they are eligible to vote. But the thing is, we don't have proxy voting and we don't have mail voting, so they cannot participate from abroad. They have to be physically here on the island.
You have to go into the polling station.
You have to go to the polling station. So they can exercise that franchise once their name is on that elector's roll or list, voters list.
And you see, sometimes we have that crosstalk. Outside of elections, sometimes persons would comment, they're not too much interested in having a card or being there. But when election comes, they belong to St. Vincent, they're Vinci. And they need to understand that they're Vinci always. So do the right thing.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier that you do have some challenges in terms of people when they're registering giving incorrect information. How big of an issue is that? And what are the main instances where you would find this occurring?
I think sometimes what we are seeing, establishing residency is always a challenge, asking people where they live and establishing correctly where they live to make certain that they have meet that requirement. And so we find that sometimes a person who is not living within the constituency long enough, or they may be there in and out. Sometimes they may come forward and say they're living there, and then there are persons who may raise objections that is not so. The other thing is for persons who have made some changes with regards to their name and have not followed the process completely to the end. Meaning, you change your name by a deed poll or by some other means, and it has not been registered fully with the registry. So you may find that your document is not necessarily reflecting that. So it is important that if you do a name change or you do any alteration, like for example, if you change the order in which your name appears, because some people don't like their first name, and that's understandable. So you could change the order, and you could actually use your second name, but that must also be reflected with a change that is on the new birth certificate that you're presenting.
Okay. We also find that persons challenge the process. In some cases, for whatever reason. Just today, we were called, the registration officer is in the field, and he is working, and he said, all right, especially for women, you need your marriage certificate. And it is not that we need to know when you're married and to whom, but we need the marriage certificate to confirm the name. Because your birth certificate would have your maiden name, and your marriage certificate would have that name. Now, we would use those documents because of administrative purposes, and on our form there is that space that we must quote what documents were used. So we would quote your documents just in case you have to come back or there's any query. We know that this birth certificate was quoted, this marriage certificate was quoted. And the officer said, he was challenged to the extent that the person said he wasn't called his lawyers to say, the person has to register. Now, no, we don't deny persons. We encourage people to do that. And we're saying, if you fight the process because of some ill will, and somewhere down the road, you need to come back to look at the card, to reuse the document, and you notice that there is an error, then you have to go back over the process. You need to bring the documents, because the documents are what would confirm your names and all of the details that we would capture. And you don't need to be so arrogant or rude in terms of because we work with people. Sometimes persons are challenged, they can't have their documents. We have nationals whose parents had lived in Aruba for years. And some persons, they come back, they have no connection with Aruba. So if you want a document from Aruba, they can't have it. We need to understand that and to be able to find other legal means of registering you. And persons also need to understand that the ID card is also a base for other documents. You go for your birth certificate, you ask for your ID card number. You go to register births, you ask for your ID card. You go to take out your passport, you ask for your ID card. Almost everything. Where's your ID card? To do your money transfers, you need your ID card. So we need to have that right. Okay. That base must be quite correct.
Okay, so person has come back to that same population of 107. I still do not understand the answers. Maybe I don't understand the maths. A population of 107,000 and 97,000 are voters. What percentage of the population are children under the age to vote? I'd like to understand how this works.
Let me see if I can help the caller. I hope I can. Let's understand what is happening. There are two types of registration that can be done, and in different democracies, different practices may obtain. But in the Commonwealth countries and in the Caribbean for certain, we practice what is called continuous registration. So that means registration is ongoing almost every day. There's another type called periodic registration, where whenever an election is called, you would conduct a registration just for persons who will become eligible for that election. So in those jurisdictions where you have that, you will find that the number of persons who are eligible to register, the conditions might be different. And for example, they may say only the persons who are residing in the country will be registered. So in a case like that, persons who are not in the country may not be allowed under a periodic registration kind of system. But where you have a continuous registration going where persons are allowed to register as soon as they become 18, it is almost a given that the numbers will continue to be in those high regions. And if we were to take the statistics from even 2001 to 2015, and you compare it with your population, you will understand the argument that I'm putting forward. In 2010, for example, the voters' population was 101,000 thereabout. And there was an outcry because the population of St. Vincent and the Grenadines was 109 or somewhere thereabout. And what did we do? And we credit the former supervisor for the boldness and the bold action of presenting a case to the parliament for consideration, which they did consider. Let us clean the voters list up. So what did we do? We came up with an approach that the persons who had not updated their registration from June 2005 to June 2015, a period spanning over 10 years, were placed on a special list to be removed, with condition, if they raise objection, that they can be replaced back on that list. They were given a 1-month amnesty to make objection, and person in the diaspora and elsewhere, and they raise the objection in writing and to the supervised election, and based on the evidence that they present why they should remain, they were replaced back. Now, so in 2015, we removed approximately 23,000 persons from the list. But what was the voters list that we went into the elections with in 2015? Approximately 89 plus thousand. You understand what's happening? Now 89. This is 2020. If we went into the elections of 2015 with 89,000 plus now, and this is 2020, right? And our voters list stands now at 97 plus. You do the math. You have
a continuous.
So continuous registration. Yeah. So, but listen, come 2025, as the supervisor just made the point, because from June 2015 to June 2025 is a period of 10 years.
Yes.
So the list would be then given an opportunity to be cleaned again. So,
okay.
You know.
So, someone, when we come back, you'd answer these. Somebody wants to know, I'm living in Canada, I'm Vincentian, was in St. Vincent 2 months ago, can I come home to vote? And somebody's also asking, who ensures that dead citizens are removed from the list, since there can be a possibility of persons who would have died, their names are still on the list? Is it a family member or someone from your organization who will check the registry for such information? We'll talk about that when we come back after this second break.
This evening on the VC3 News Update, the Roads, Building and General Services Authority BRACSA has joined the fight against dengue fever in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a $2.5 million road cleaning program. Vincentians to be educated on COVID-19 protocols that are to be implemented for the general elections slated for November 5th. And the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment now has a cardiologist in service. And in sports, locally, Wakanda came away 8-3 winners over Cane End yesterday at the Richland Park playing field in the Hyroon Digital Richland Park 9-a-side competition. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago's Football Association President William Wallace successfully defied FIFA in the High Court. We'll have these stories and more at 7 p.m. on the VC3 News Update.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
The Super 6 jackpot for Friday, October 16th is $240,000. Super 6, more jackpot money.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Welcome back. There were 2 questions pending. Don't know if you care to respond.
I just want to go to that same point with the list where persons say that they can't understand the maths. But if we are to look at and to tally the number of Vincentians living abroad, and we might find some even on the moon, and those persons out there who are holding the card, we will see the thousands of Vincentians who are not living in St. Vincent but have a card. And those persons, the names are on the list. And when you look also at the turnout of elections, sometimes you have 67, 70% or so persons turning out. There's a reason. Yes, some persons stay home, but there are many of them not here. Many of them are not here. So that is why you can't have an 80% turnout or 90% turnout, because a great percentage of the persons are living abroad, but their cards are eligible. And until that time, we will not be able to have that list, reduced down to some number that persons feel is the right number.
Mm-hmm. I think another question was about the who
is responsible to remove, and it is the office.
The office.
The electoral office gets the information from the registry, and we remove the names. There are persons who also, family members who also produce information about relatives. They might look on the list and they see the names. I remember one lady came and said her mother and father were still on the list. And so sometimes it has to do with the differences in name. You were registered way back without a birth certificate. You die, there was a death certificate. The names were different. You were living in a different era. Sometimes you might have given the information, your name was not correct, your date of birth was not correct. And if we can't match correctly names with the death, then we can't remove the names. You might find removing somebody's name and then the person turns up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in any event, there will always be somebody or a name on the list of somebody who has died, because death is inevitable and we don't have the timelines when a person will die. And so we could just, today we produce a list, but somebody died today, so their names will still be on that list. Yeah. So let us not think
so the office is the authority that would
remove the names.
Right, and get that information of who has expired.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, you're using some nice term, expired. But and then the civil registry is that authority that provides us with that information. So it's not just arbitrary, you just go there. You have the civil registry that provides you on a monthly basis a list of all the deaths in the country.
Okay, so we have several things here. Somebody wants to know if we could explain the process regarding the ballot boxes on the night before the elections and at the conclusion of the elections. Last elections, presiding officers were accused of taking home ballot boxes. Yes, we plan to do that later on. We will have that explained. And someone is suggesting, so supervisors, won't this lead to fraudulent activities with people voting more than once in different districts in an election? I'm not sure if I follow that myself.
No, if the person could do that over.
Is it legal for someone to vote in a constituency and live in a different constituency? Yes.
Yes, it is. It is. It is.
In the final day of registration, will the public be updated on the concluded figures that are eligible, I think is what is meant here, for vote on November 5th? Well, yes, because the
you have a final list to be produced, and that would include all those persons who have registered, because those who register still are there. Some persons who may be off, you would have those, so those would become like new registrants, and you would have persons who turn 18 within the period whose names will be added. And so the final list will reflect all eligible voters up to the 24th of October.
Right. Okay. Just Teresa, I think it's important for us to just strengthen this point. With regards to whether a person can vote in more than one constituency, I think somebody raised that. The law says no person, and this is subsection 5, part 1 under the qualification of a voter, no person shall be qualified to be registered as a voter for more than one constituency. So that debunked the whole idea. You can register more than once. Secondly, where a person has been registered as a voter for a constituency ceases to reside in that constituency, so it means they registered for North Leeward, but they cease to reside in North Leeward, he shall not on the account cease to be qualified to be registered as a voter for that constituency until he has become qualified to be registered as a voter for another constituency. So this is speaking to the issue of transfer. So let it be clear. So I am registered in East St. George, but I found some lands in North Union. Oh, lovely area. I decide I'm going to build out there. So I moved to North Union. This law says, although I am not living in East St. George anymore, I am still qualified until I become qualified out in North Union. Suppose I never decide to move. I have my family. I have fruit tree, mango tree in my first place, and I go back there to get. And I want to go back there because every time election comes, it's a nice feeling to go back there and meet your family and greet your friends. There's nothing illegal. And I think I heard a conversation that people are saying it is illegal because they don't live there. But the law says where a person has been registered as a voter for a constituency cease to reside in that constituency, he shall not on that account cease to be qualified to be registered as a voter for that constituency until he has become qualified to be registered as a voter for another constituency.
Okay, and could talk about what those qualifications are. Somebody's saying in most countries a census is done every 10 years. How often or when was the last census in SVG?
Well, we wouldn't really speak much about the census because there's a division that deals with census.
Correct.
But I think it's around 2010 or so, or 11. But
12.
They would have to deal with the acts of the census division.
Exactly.
What overall measures are now introduced for free and fair elections, seeing the case brought against the electoral system?
We have always
had free and fair elections.
Persons might have their opinion, but we have always had free and fair elections. Free, fair, and transparent elections. Now we know that there are a number of persons who are perfect. And even if you go to the Bible, the scribes and Pharisees, they were so perfect that when they were put to the test, they walked away with their stone in their hands. Some of them dropped them easily and walked. Now, we are not saying that in the process of maybe writing or something that you might not right? But the process is transparent. We have workers who work with the electoral office, presiding officers, and poll clerks, and we have agents. And if you know agents love their parties. And when you're selected as an agent, it is saying, I am a die-hard party supporter. No agent will sit there and notice something going wrong and don't speak about it. So we are saying that all of us have a responsibility to continue to ensure that we have free and fair election, and that every election is done in a peaceful and respectable manner.
Okay, so
Right.
nomination day is next week.
Yes.
The 20th. Tell us what's going to happen on nomination day.
So on
What's the
nomination day, persons who put themselves up for candidacy in the party will come forward. Nomination, it takes place between the hours of 9 and 12 o'clock on that day. There's an additional hour for special activity. So from 9 to 12, the persons who put themselves up, they can come in person or they can have an agent. And they have a form that is filled out, that is called a notice of nomination, a nomination form. There are 6 persons from their constituency who will endorse them, and they would sign. Certain information will be recorded on that form, and once that is done, they pay $500 and their registration is sealed. Now, between the hours of 9 and 1 o'clock, there is a period of objection.
From 12.
From 12 to 1.
So if anybody has
any objection with the nominations that were done in between the hours of 9 and 12, then that is the time they can come forward and raise their objections. They do so in writing, and it has to be verified. If what the persons are saying is true, if the objections are true, when that decision is taken, the results will go forward. So in a case where you might have an objection and the objection is factual and that person was nominated can no longer stand nominated, then there is an uncontested election, because the one candidate would automatically be the candidate for that constituency.
So there would be no room for someone to replace?
No, because the time of nomination has passed. 12 o'clock has gone, and you cannot nominate anybody after 12 o'clock. So those persons have to be up and ready and understand the process and make sure that they... In addition to that, there is a declaration. They must declare certain facts about themselves. So that would go along with the nomination.
Okay, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what's going to happen now on election day. And someone is asking how long a candidate who lives overseas must be in the country to run. So we'll talk about that also when we come back.
Fire and dice. Together on one scratch ticket can make your dreams come true. Yes, it's Fire and Dice. The new $10 scratch game with thousands of dollars to be won. Match your numbers with any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown up to $125,000. You can double or triple your prize with Fire and Dice. Available from all lotto agents and runners. There's cash to catch with just a scratch.
This evening on the VC3 News Update, the Roads Building and General Services Authority BRACSA has joined the fight against dengue fever in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a $2.5 million road cleaning program. Vincentians to be educated on COVID-19 protocols that are to be implemented for the general elections slated for November 5th. And the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment now has a cardiologist in service. And in sports, locally, Wakanda came away 8-3 winners over KNN yesterday at the Richland Park playing field in the Hyroon Digital Richland Park 9-a-side competition. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago's Football Association President William Wallace successfully defied FIFA in the High Court. We'll have these stories and more at 7 p.m. on the VC3 News Update.
Welcome back. Lots of things we want to get in this last segment, but there's a question I think you wanted to follow up on before we get into. It has to
do with the nomination, I believe.
Yes, yes.
Right. So we want to ensure that people follow the rules. The time is from 9 to 12. The places, and I want to give them that it's gazetted and it's also in the, I think it should be in the newspaper, but it's on our website as well. In the North Windward constituency, the Sandy Bay Police Station, and the returning officer there is Mr. Bowens, Calvert Bowens. In the North Central Windward constituency, it's the Georgetown Police Station, and the returning officer is Maria Burke. In the South Central Windward constituency, it's the Learning Resource Center in San Souci, and the returning officer is Miss Yvette Spencer. In South Windward, the place is at the Bible Police Station, and the returning officer there is Mr. Leroy Alexander. In the Marica constituency, the place is the Mesopotamia Police Station, and the returning officer there is Lucille Francis. In the East St. George constituency, the Calico Town Hall, and the returning officer there is Mr. Charles Samuel. In the West St. George constituency, it's at the Bel Air Government School, and the returning officer there is Miss Yvette Brown. In East Kingstown, it's at the CW Prescott Primary School, and the returning officer there is Miss Jacqueline Glasgow Brown. In Central Kingston is the Courthouse Kingston, and Edlina Adams is the returning officer. In West Kingston, the Stony Grounds Government School, and the returning officer is Mr. James Wilson. In South Leeward, it is at the Kittels Police Station, and the returning officer there is Mr. Otneil Brown. Central Leeward, it's at the Leyu Police Station, and the returning officer is Mr. Wallace Christopher. In North Leeward, the Chateaubelair Police Station, and Mr. MacArthur Gordon is the returning officer. In the Northern Grenadines, Port Elizabeth Police Station, Beckway, and Mr. Devon Oliver is the returning officer. And in Ashton, Union Island, at the police station, Southern Grenadines, and Gayleen Noel is the returning officer. The documents, which include the nomination paper, where the 6 persons who are eligible to vote in that election will sign, the declaration, which they must sign on to, and of course their $500 cash. It's not check, it's cash, and real cash must be presented.
Okay, so these are the returning officers and the places where the nomination forms can be obtained, and where they
delivered as well
will receive the nomination papers.
Correct.
Someone was asking how long a candidate who lives overseas must live in the country for to be a candidate.
The declaration that they are going to and they must comply with, which is found in the law, and Form 3 represents that, sets out 14 conditions which they must satisfy. Now, we don't have the time to go through all 14 of them, but it speaks to that question that the caller is referring to. And I would point out the second requirement, and I just read it for them. They would then interpret and apply the legal mind. All right. It says, I have resided in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for a period of 12 months immediately before the date of nomination for elections, and that has an A and a B part. So that's the A part. The B part says, I am domiciled in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and resident therein at the date of my nomination for elections. So you can pull this up and digest it a little more. And if you're not so clear, you can consult with some legally, minded person, so that they would give you clarity.
Yes. Okay. So what is happening now is that the preliminary voters' lists are being displayed in the various constituencies.
Yes.
And where exactly are they located? Are the lists located? Various.
In the constituencies, and most times we try to use public buildings where persons would go, and also shops. So you find in a number of constituencies, if you check the police station, the hospital, the
clinics,
the post offices, certain shops that are prominent in the community, you would find the list there. And we try to put at least 2 per division, per polling division, so that persons would go there and be able to look at their names. Now we urge persons to leave the list there because others would want to participate and to see. We have cases in the past where persons would tear off the pages, and it is an offense. So you use the list, and if you notice that you find you went there, you searched, you didn't find your name, you can check with the electoral office. How come my name is not there? And we will be able to guide you or take note of it, because we need to be able to have you on the final list once you're eligible.
I think, Teresa, it is useful for us to let people know there's an easy way to check. And we have developed, with the able assistance of the ITSD department, and we really want to commend them for the work that they have done, an application which is available on our website. That application can be found at electoral.gov.vc. Now, I want to illustrate to you that it works.
Yes, and if our guys are following,
it works
they
very
should
well.
be able to.
So if you're home right now viewing this program, take out your phone, go on your laptop, go on your computer, and Granny, if you're watching and you don't know, let your granddaughter, grandson help you, and I know you will be able to get it. But it is electoral.gov.vc. That's the web page. When you go on that page, a number of options will come to you. You would see what is called a polling station finder. A polling station finder. You just click on that, which is called polling station finder, and you would see the polling station finder there. It's up on the screen now. So you click on polling station finder. If you click on polling station finder, it would tell you to view. And you click on that, a box would come up. You put your voter registration number. Your voter registration number is found at the back of your card. There are 2 numbers at the back of the card. There's an NIS number, and there is your voter registration number. Now I'm going to put in my own number. So let's put it online there. I'm not afraid to do that. So the number is 097415. 097415. And as soon as you click on that, what you're going to see happening, so you're seeing one, you're confirming that your name is on the list, and it is also telling you where you are going to vote. So based on this, I am voting at the community college. And this is so useful because you have a pictorial representation of the place that you are going to go, and it tells you some information. Notice as well, it says the division on the polling stations there. Now my name ends with, my surname begins with K. So you would notice that I am in polling division G1. Because it says polling division G and G1. G is from A to J, and G1 is from K to to Z. So you want to check to see if your name is on the preliminary list. Remember, we're talking about the preliminary list. You don't have to go down to the post office. Yes, you can go. You don't have to go to the police station. Yes, you can go. But you can go right on your phone and have that check done and save you any discomfort. Now, let's suppose you go online and you notice that when you put in the number, nothing is coming up. Then you check again to make sure you put in the correct number. And make sure that you have data or Wi-Fi. Because if those things are not in place, you might not see anything happening. But if when you do so, you don't have anything showing up, you call our office. And that's where we can then help you to establish. Something importantly for those of you who are physically checking the list. The list is broken down by polling division. Now, and you must know what polling division you're in, because if you just go arbitrarily and check any list in the constituency, you're not going to find a name. Your name can only be found in the division where you'll be casting your vote. So I think that's important.
Yes, because we have posted the polling division list in the various areas, and that is why you have so many, so that persons can access. And just in case you think that King's number is the only number there, or you can't, I am going to put mine and you would see where I would vote also. So mine is, so we could go back to the polling station finder and include my number so that we can also see that it continues to work, not just for one person, but for all of us. We just have to make sure that where we are, we can have that information. All right.
So you're giving...
yes, it's back up.
It's 073 720. 073 720.
Right, so
I am at the Shatibele Methodist School, and the information is right there. I am in polling station D, and my name begins with J. My surname begins with J, so I will be at polling station D, because that has surnames beginning with letters A to J.
Okay, so I'm going to put mine in as well.
You want to try, so let's go.
So it's 040161. 040161.
Excellent.
There we go. So I'm at the Public Works polling station as usual. Surnames beginning with A to E, and I am D. So there's my polling station. See, guys, it works.
Definitely, it works. And that site has a lot of useful information, because you can check your voters list. You can check for GPs in your constituencies. You can check for the past elections as far back as 1951.
Great.
And the results are there right up to 2015. So if people familiarize themselves with the site, it's a useful tool to really, and again, like I said, you really want to use it because it's convenient. I mean, thinking about you being in your home, and to those people talking about people who are living overseas, you could go and check it.
Yes, and that I think that's a perfect note on which to end this week's edition of Roundtable Talk. Thank you very much, guys. Supervisor of Elections, Dora James, and Deputy Supervisor Sylvester King. Thank you for the information, and I'm hoping against hope that we can get you back in here to talk about what actually transpires on election day, what are the procedures, what would happen, and so forth. Because the time just ran out with us today. Thank you. That's our program for today. See you again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.